I do believe that the companies that do end up creating long-lasting value are the ones that take a long time to build, because you can't possibly figure out everything in 2 or 3 years, right? I mean, I think it takes a long time. You have a lot of pivots. You have, different teams, different team from when you started to 2 years in, to 5 years in, to 10 years in, because people evolve slower than companies do, right? And so this is all...
That's an interesting quote. I haven't heard that before.
That was one of the first things I ever heard about entrepreneurship, and it's always stuck with me. And
people evolve slower than companies.
Yeah, which is why you have turnover at companies, right? Because the company I have today was not the company I had a year ago or 2 years ago, but generally people are the same, right? And so, in fact, in Mark Randolph's book, one of the things I admire most about him was knowing when to step down. Reed Hastings was actually one of his first investors, and he ended up taking over the company. But it takes a lot of self-awareness for an entrepreneur to understand where their skill set ends or where their leadership ends, because they haven't evolved into, or they are not the person to lead the company from that stage forward, and that is okay, right? We shouldn't be evolving at such a fast rate, right?
I think you have to give yourself some grace in that too. To obviously, you always want to be learning, but yeah, if you hit a plateau, I think a lot of people are like, how do I just turn my weaknesses into strengths? And the best founders are often going to say, how do I bring in someone else to manage around it and maybe get out of the way more? Yeah. And sometimes that pushes you all the way outside of your company, which would be tough. I haven't experienced that, so I can't imagine what that feels like. Yeah. But some of the most successful companies, that had to happen, right?
Yeah, and oftentimes...
Apple, Steve Jobs, he had to come back and kind of, fascinating.
And oftentimes that happens, right? Where, the founder doesn't end up becoming the long-term CEO. But, if you're building a company that is sustainable and long-lasting, I think that should happen at some point. And if it doesn't, I think there are a few people, like you look at John Foley of Peloton was there, like from the beginning to the end. And that's great too. You look at Mark Zuckerberg, but there are a lot of other companies where that doesn't happen. And so I think, just knowing yourself, being self-aware, and giving yourself that grace.